This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
Now, the CIMA syllabus talks about three different models for capturing and sharing value. I think the word model here is a bit pretentious. Really, it says that when you're looking at value, you're looking at costs, you're looking at revenues, and the difference which we have is the residual value, is the profit, is the value added. And all these three different models are talking about is, understand your costs, understand your revenues, what are the influence in both of these, because these are then going to alter and determine what the residual value is, what the profit is, and then we have, of course, to decide how to distribute that profit amongst the various shareholders. So the sort of things which will influence cost is, what materials are we buying? What standard of materials are we buying? How long are we going to spend making products? What care do we take? What degree of automation is there? So a highly automated organization making more or less identical products one after the other, operating on a global scale, we'll be able to enjoy great economies of scale and bring down the cost per unit. Some organizations, instead of deciding to incur the cost of production themselves, they decide to subcontract production, maybe to companies who are offshore in a cheaper part of the world, and this keeps their costs down, and they simply import them, and that's how they are going to be affecting costs. Some organizations say, well, we need our costs to go higher because actually we're getting into some trouble here with our reputation of our product because it seems to be of unsatisfactory quality, and maybe what we have to do is to try and buy better material and take longer in producing goods. But we have to understand what causes or drives the costs, what's going to put them up and down and so on, so that we can make rational decisions. Similarly, in terms of our revenue, we have to determine and understand what affects our revenue. To whom are we selling? Are we selling single items, or are we selling groups of 4 items, kind of, as a multi-buy? Are we selling directly to the public? Are we selling through retail organizations? What sort of advertising are we supporting our selling efforts with? Can we use advertising to try and raise the prices? Are we going to stop selling cheaper goods to a cut price market and only concentrate on the luxury goods? And all that the phrase revenue model means is really understand the pricing, understand the collection periods and so on, so that you can earn good revenue at the end of the day. And then the residual model is really simply sharing the difference between revenue and costs, principally between the government, which is basically tax, between the shareholders who get dividends or who's enjoy the retained earnings because the company grows, or of course the residual amounts can be paid out through bonuses and rewards to directors, managers and employees. Now, we said that an essential part of understanding what an ecosystem is that it is going to be faced with environments and components of the environment which are continually changing, and that the organization has to adapt or evolve if it is going to be in any position to survive. Now, we come here to look at two aspects of how the environment might change and how an organization might be faced with some difficulties in that. The first one is this idea of strategic drift. And here is where we have really the environment is changing fairly slowly. And what the organization is doing, it is making these little kind of incremental changes It is, managing to keep up to date with the environment, to track it fairly closely, to keep producing new products that seem to be in line with what customers want, and so on. And things are going quite well. However, sometimes what can happen is that management takes their eye off the ball, or that changes begin to accelerate away unexpectedly quickly. So here what we have is environment changing rather rapidly. It could be through rapid technological change, the way the internet has changed a lot of businesses very, very radically indeed. If you think of the music business, the music business changed, I suppose, from vinyl discs, and then it, I suppose, came on to cassette tapes, and then it came on to kind of CDs, all kind of gradual changes because the music companies were simply selling a different sort of recording medium. But then we had a very radical acceleration of the change here, and we had downloads with MP3 and the like, and made it very easy to share music, potentially legally, but nevertheless sharing music. So what he had, if you like, an acceleration in the way the environment was changing, and this caused some difficulty for the music companies. They didn't quite know what to do. They knew that what they had been doing didn't make much sense anymore, that they were never going to go back and be able to sell huge volumes of CDs. And there was an element of turmoil or flux. This is what flux means here. The strategic drift means that the difference between the environment and what you're actually doing is widening. And then there's a period of kind of panic or flux, where people are running around wondering how should we deal with this and so on. And really two things can happen as an outcome. Either you happen on a solution which is going to work, and essentially that's what happened the music business, because of organizations like iTunes and Spotify and so on. They got on to legal file sharing, legal downloading of music, and they also changed where they earn a lot of money, so that bands touring earn a lot of money, and the MP3 tracks are almost there to market the tours. But music businesses are still doing pretty well. But they could have got it wrong. They almost got it wrong because they initially took a very aggressive stance towards ordinary people, individuals, who regarded file sharing as normal, and began taking a number of music consumers to court, suing them for breach of copyright and so on. But the bad publicity that this aroused meant that they soon stopped that. But they did find a way of dealing with this change. They did manage to get a successful transformation to survive. Now, strategic drift implies a slow divergence. Sometimes it can be much faster, and the music one was almost fast, but what you can have is disruption. Disruption is where there's a sudden change in the business or the business activities, and it takes very often people by surprise. I suppose if we're thinking that music is just about a gentle change, we could say that maybe what's happening with organizations like Netflix and then Amazon and so on, all of these, Apple, these organizations are beginning to produce their own films, feature films, beginning to produce their own television type series and so on. And consumers have discovered that they would much rather download episodes of a series on demand, so that if you're free for a night, you can kind of look at 3 episodes in a row if you want, rather than having them spaced out over the week. And this is posing profound challenges to the conventional television companies. It's happened there. It's maybe happening in retail. If you think of the power that what Amazon has done to really stir up many retail businesses, and many retail businesses operating conventional stores, particularly department stores, in many countries are running into considerable difficulties, really, in finding a business model which still yields profits, given that the goods can be more cheaply supplied through companies like Amazon. And what we have now for many organizations is an environment which is volatile, it is uncertain, it is complex, and it is ambiguous. Volatile, changing quickly. Uncertain, we're not sure how it's changing. Complex, because the changes are potentially quite complicated to understand. It may not affect all of the sectors you're selling to. It may be affecting just some sectors. We're not quite sure how to respond. And ambiguous, we're actually not quite sure what's happening. We're not quite sure, what's going to happen in the next year. Is there going to be another leap forward in technology, which is going to get us into yet another set of rules? How do we, as organizations, within this type of a disruptive ecosystem, how can we protect ourselves? And the first way is to be proactive, is not to wait around for the disruptive influence, but to be the disruptive influence. To see or to try to see what's going to happen and be first in with the new methodologies, so that you're putting your competitors to a disadvantage. The way you can cause disruption, if we're thinking disruption is going to be done through some sort of online trading, for example, if that's what it's going to be, is you could build up your website yourself. You could build a warehouse somewhere. You could develop the internet site that people can order through it, see the goods through, and so that's building it. Relatively slow, but cheaper. You could buy an organization which has already successfully got an internet presence, got the warehouse going and the logistics going, and you could buy that up, and you could, as well as selling their goods, you could simply piggyback your goods onto that and use that to be the outlet for your goods. That would be a very quick way into it. You can partner with someone, not quite buy them, but partner. Say, right, will you host my e-business website and look after my logistics? You can invest in another company, a small company, and almost like a venture capitalist. You can say, right, you're there in a very small way of operating. I will give you lots more money. I want you to accelerate what you're doing, and I want you to be the internet host for my e-business. Or, which is very close to invest, you can incubate or accelerate. It's a small business, and what you do is you say, right, you've got certain technical skills which are very good, but you're not very good at marketing, or you've got a very good internet site, but you're not very good at logistics. So what I will do is I will help you. I will supply the skills you need to enable you to accelerate your growth, so that in a much shorter time we can be of use to each other. Very like investment. But investment is you kind of give them the money and let them get on with it. Incubate and accelerating is you're kind of holding their hand and giving them guidance and help to achieve what you need them to achieve. Second method is you can create a safe space. You can say, right, if lots and lots of my customers are going to prefer internet purchases, e-business purchases, there may be some segments of my customer base who don't want that, who still want to go to conventional shops. So what we might do is to say, right, I will maybe even withdraw from trying to compete with these internet people. I will just concentrate on this safe area that doesn't seem to be threatened at the moment. Or you can build in resilience. So rather than living really up to your overdraft and so on there, you say, well, what I could do maybe is if I take leases on shops, you have the foresight not to take 20-year leases on shops. So you're going to be locked into rent for 10 years. When you rent a new shop, you had said, right, I want to be able to get out of this lease in 5-year gaps, 5, 10, 15, then the lease comes to an end. So what you're doing there is saying, I'm not locked into this for 20 years. I am building flexibility. I'm building options into this, which are going to give me resilience, a way of fighting back against these disruptors in the organization. I might lose something, but I'm not going to lose everything because of this resilience. Finally, we need to look at what's called a digital operating model. An operating model for a business is the key relationship between business functions, the processes and the structures. And when we're looking at digital operating models, we're saying with new digital technology, how are we going to use this digital technology to enhance our chances of survival? And there are 5 models talked about. And the first is customer-centric. In other words, you're going to use the digital powers, if you like, the digital mechanisms. You're going to use those, didn't want to go anywhere there. And the first is customer-centric. And customer-centric is where you're saying, I am going to use the digital technology to make things better for my customers. I am going to give them a better service. It could be by allowing them to access your website so that they can maybe track goods you're delivering to them. I have been on websites where I've ordered goods. Not only does it say the goods have been dispatched, it allows you to track your goods, and you can see a little map, and you can see where the delivery vehicle is as it comes, towards your house. And that's making life a little bit better. It can be like Amazon, where Amazon uses the huge information it has about its consumers to maybe make recommendations for future purchases. It makes it very easy for you to buy. It makes it very easy for you to compare goods and see reviews and so on. These are customer-centric approaches to digital operating models. You could use it to become what's known as extra frugal, where you use a digital technology to reduce costs drastically, and by reducing costs you can reduce prices. And that's how you're going to survive maybe under these conditions of great volatility. An example is Ryanair. Ryanair makes huge use of IT, both in selling to individuals. It wants you to check in online. It wants you to, when you get to the airport, you probably nowadays, print your own boarding passes and luggage tags and so on. Ryanair is very good at, and indeed other cut price airlines, very good at altering their prices many times a day, really just to try and encourage that extra bit of marginal revenue to get great efficiency into their operations. So extra frugal, deliver your goods or services at a lower cost, at a lower price, but nevertheless it maintains profitability. There is data powered, using data essentially as the way in which you're going to create value. So think of Airbnb. What Airbnb does, it brings together people who have got spare rooms and people who want accommodation. It's a pure exercise really on data and matching up suppliers and consumers. Banks are going that way. Modern e-banks like Revolut, for example, everything is done online. And you don't need any branches, and they do it extremely efficiently online as well, and it's data powered. Skynet. Skynet is where you use machines extensively to improve the efficiency of operations. So by harnessing the ability, say, to coordinate production and delivery, that's a form of Skynet. Famous example is of Dell. So Dell, as a computer manufacturer, was the last computer manufacturer, PC manufacturer, really to manufacture in America. Long before Dell went, Hewlett-Packard and so on had shifted, and Apple had shifted all its production really to cheaper areas. But what Dell did was they used IT to be really, really efficient in producing computers. They would consolidate orders which came in over the internet. They would send out orders to suppliers every hour. They would expect the orders to be delivered within an hour. So you had the Dell factory, and then all around it you had your suppliers, within a kilometer or something. So you could deliver within an hour, and then the lorries would come in. They would reverse into a loading bay in the Dell factory. So this would be lorries all around it here. The lorries would wait until goods were taken directly from the lorry onto the production line. It was fantastically coordinated. The specified computer would then be made within about an hour, tested and dispatched. So there was no inventory in this at all. There was no slack, if you like. It relied for its huge efficiency on the IT system coordinating the delivery and production just like clockwork, and this got the costs well down. Open and liquid implies using your IT system to be very open. In other words, making very high use of information you'd be obtaining from customers, information you'd be obtaining from suppliers. You'd be able to liaise very easily with suppliers, getting them to respond quickly to requests for more products, for more raw material and so on. This is the way in which Boeing, for example, when it was creating its 787 model, it subcontracted huge amounts. It was a very new airplane, loads and loads of new components, but it used the internet really to tell suppliers what it wanted to, if you like, deliver designs, computer-aided design to suppliers. The suppliers would then create the products, deliver it as required by Boeing and to Boeing and so on. And if one supplier couldn't do it, then they could switch to another supplier and so on. So IT really was a way of endowing the organization with huge flexibility and different ways of responding quickly to different user responses, of switching production from making this product to that product, or maybe tailoring production to make a special product, yet doing it profitably, because IT meant that so much could be automated, and therefore carried on very efficiently.